Ono, the guy behind the Toyota production system, and sort of a father of lean, if you like, he had this wonderful phrase, autonomation. And automation is automation with a human touch. Okay, so we are going to automate things to make work easier, not to replace people. Right? It may be that we need fewer people to do that afterwards, which is great, because now I can take those people I had and they can be doing other more valuable things. Yeah. So that's do. Then we go back and check. Okay. Take Ono again. This is Gemba. He says, Gemba Gembutsu, look with your feet, think with your hands. Don't take data in and just believe it, right? Go and see. He calls it go and see, walk the line. Go down and see what's actually going on. So you look with your feet, you don't look with your eyes. You think with your hands, you don't think with your brain. Right? You do the work, you go and experience the work, you live the work, and that gives you insights that you wouldn't have as a leader. And then finally we adjust. What does a plan look like? We co-create the plan. What do we put into the experiment? The first thing we put into the experiment is a hypothesis, right? A statement of belief. We believe that when we do this, this will happen. Okay. The second thing we put in, if we're any good, is a baseline. Right. So where are we starting from? The null hypothesis, we're going to do nothing, means we end up here. The hypothesis, when we do this thing, we think we'll end up here. Okay. And if we're really good at this, we have a control. We're going to do this with these teams, and we're not going to do this with these teams, and we're going to try and make everything else equal. And then we're going to see what actually happened. So mostly, a lot of us don't baseline, and certainly most of us don't have a control, or an academically robust control, let's say.
Modularisierung ist eine Spezialisierung von Separation of Concerns und die erweitert das Ganze um Information Hiding, lose Kopplung und hohe Kohäsion. So, jetzt stellt sich natürlich die Frage, da werden sich jetzt ein paar von euch wahrscheinlich denken, hey Michael, das klingt alles total super. Ja? Bloß wie finde ich denn solche Modulgrenzen? Wie komme ich denn da drauf? Ich sag's mal so, das ist schwer. Ja, und das ist nicht trivial. Auch, ja, wenn ihr jetzt mal das umsetzt, was ich jetzt auf den folgenden Folien euch aus der Domain-Driven Design.
So, first of all, a service is a unit of functionality exposed to the world, or a bit more elaborate.
So the next question becomes, what is the right scope for a service? So, we could talk about some terminology here, and people have various terminology for this stuff. This is what I'm using. Certainly, if you have your own version, that's fine.
And on the other hand, we have domain-driven design. There is a term called bounded context. You may have heard of it. And this splits a domain, a business domain, into smaller parts. Because the problem is, if you have a big domain or a regular-sized domain, so to say, it may lead to a big team, right? So I was working for Swiss Railways on another project about the train disposition, and there we were 60 people. So you can't work with 60 people on the same piece of code, usually. So you have to split that anyway. We did that also earlier, but what you also should think about when you're splitting your application, you should think about the team size. And in my opinion, the smaller the team, the faster the development speed. So
problem number 3 that I see is microservices that are too big. There's this whole field called domain-driven development. Is anybody familiar with that already? Okay, quite a few of us. It's complicated. For those that raised your hand just now, you know this domain-driven development is a huge topic. We could talk for many hours just about this. So instead of talking about domain-driven development and how that applies to microservices here, I'll mention a really good book to start with, which is this domain-driven design book. If you want to understand how to architect a microservices application, I highly recommend that you learn about domain-driven design, or DDD for short, and that this book is a really good place to learn that from. However, if you would like a shortcut version of it, let me explain what my shortcut version is, which is my simple rule, instead of all the stuff that you need to know from DDD, is that you're trying to create the smallest possible microservices without chatty communication between them. Now, smallest and chatty are up for debate.
Let's look on our model of a socio-technical system. It's quite obvious that we can describe a bounded context as a socio-technical system. We have a development team, we have members who work in this context. They get roles. When they develop the software, they get some the structure of the development team. When we also include our domain experts and the users, we have a bigger structure, we have more roles, we have more tasks, but we can describe what happens in such a bounded context quite well as a socio-technical system.
Der letzte Punkt ist der absolut entscheidende Teil, der die Domain-Driven Design-Welt vielleicht ein bisschen abhebt von anderen Perspektiven. Wir wollen dieses Modell, welches in der konsistenten Sprache ausgedrückt ist, auf einen bestimmten Zweck zuschneiden. Also wir wollen überlegen, was ist der Zweck dieser Modulgrenze, und wir wollen da drin ein Modell finden, das genau diesen Zweck total gut erfüllt. Also das heißt, wir wollen, dass die Sprache, die Regeln und dieses spezifische Modell diesem Zweck folgen.
Heraus entsteht die Notwendigkeit von Zwecken. Jetzt kommen wir an einen spannenden Punkt. Der Zweck, den wir mit solchen Organisationen und Teilen von Organisationen erfüllen, ist nicht identisch mit dem Ziel. Die Zwecke verändern sich nicht, auch wenn sich das Ziel verändert. Das mag jetzt blöd klingen, aber das macht Management einfach. Diese Idee, diese Notwendigkeit oder dieser Nutzen, den wir aus Teilen von Organisationen ziehen, ist schlicht und einfach das Anwenden von Divide and Conquer, das wir aus der Softwareentwicklung ja auch an diversen Stellen kennen. Wir zerlegen, wenn wir ein Softwaresystem bauen, das auch in funktionale Blöcke, wo wir sagen, wir haben irgendwelche fachlichen Cluster, funktionalen Cluster, die gemeinsam eine Funktionalität, einen Nutzen shiften. Manche nennen es Microservices. Und genauso wie wir so eine Softwarearchitektur oder so eine Software...
Tasklog hat geschrieben, ist eine Datenbanktabelle auch schon ein Modell? Nein, eine Datenbanktabelle hat halt offensichtlich keine Operation, nicht? Also ich kann nicht sagen, die Datenbanktabelle implementiert das Aufgeben einer Bestellung, nicht? Das ist halt ein Datum, das ist intern, das ist ein Teil der Implementierung. Das ist genau das, was ich auch versuche zu sagen. Die Daten sind dann halt eine Folge davon. Deswegen will ich auf Schnittstellen mich konzentrieren, gerade nicht auf die Implementierung.
I've seen that countless times happening. And now mind the difference, please. In classical object-oriented analysis and design, OOAD, there is I still remember when I was at university, we had a book that said, okay, first of all, look for nouns. Those are your classes. Then look for attributes. And after that, look for the method. What have we built with that? Very, very often. Data models. And not domain models. From that perspective, we very often see classes and modules, private attribute.
Diesen Unterschied zwischen dem klassischen objektorientierten Analyse- und Design-Ansatz, der mit Substantiven startet, wo wir Attribute ableiten und erst dann auf Verben in Form von Methoden schauen, und dem Domain-Driven Design-Ansatz, wo wir zuerst mal mit den Verben beginnen und dann eher in Richtung von Strukturen und so weiter und so fort schauen. Beim Bounded Context geht es eben nicht darum, die Botanik, US-Zoll, Kochen, Zeitmanagement, Feedback-Tomate zu bauen. Also die eierlegende Wollmilchsau-Tomate, die alles kann. Nein, wir wollen spezifische Tomaten modellieren an der Stelle. Und es ist auch die Abkehr im Grunde genommen auf Basis Modularisierung und Modellierung von Wiederverwendung über allem. Also die Domain-Driven Design-Welt besagt, wir wollen lieber mal in diesen Grenzen spezifische Modelle finden, und wird das danach wiederverwendbar, ist das cool, dann machen wir das. Ist es nicht wiederverwendbar, dann soll es halt einfach nicht sein. Also das heißt, wir sagen spezifische Modelle first, Wiederverwendbarkeit second. Und ich glaube momentan in vielen Organisationen Wiederverwendbarkeit first.
Worked on a system that's hard to understand. Don't raise your hands. I know it's all of you. It's like we seem to accept this in our industry, and that bothers me. So let's go straight into a very simple example because you're less likely to make mistakes. Of course, good abstraction isolates a problem from other problems. So we're used to talking about this at sort of local software design level, at object level. With bounded context, we can talk about this at a much larger scale. And it's not just code. When we talk about bounded context, we talk about language, right? Ubiquitous language, models, the conceptual understanding of how our system works. We're trying to isolate responsibilities there. Yes? Make sense? This early in the morning? All right. So I feel that even in the DDD community, right, most of us are sort of undervaluing the difference between domains and bounded context. Domains, I see that as it's from the problem space, right? It's how the business perceives itself, how the business organizes itself, how it thinks about itself, right? Oh, we are, a company that does textile distribution. Just that's our main domain, and then our core domain, and then parts of that are subdomains. So we do invoices, we do this, we do that. That's sort of how they perceive themselves. They have organized themselves. Part of it is historic, right? We have historically, people have separated sales from marketing for practical reasons, for organizational purposes, or engineering from marketing, or all these kind of separations exist because organizations have sort of evolved this, and these are patterns that seem to work or that they copy blindly. Other times they have separated, deliberately themselves. But the way organizations organize is to serve their needs, not how to organize the software, right? They haven't designed themselves over the last 400 or 500 years in ways that serve the software. We as designers, developers, designers, I use it in a broad sense, everybody who has an impact on the design of the software system. So bounded contexts are solution space, are our way or a tool for us to organize the software and to think about how it works. And I'm not talking here about system boundaries. We have been doing that since the 70s, Parnasse, the modularization of software systems. I'm not talking about domains. I'm talking about something different here. That's bounded context. Right? So this is a tool that we have. The bounded contexts are not inherent in the domain, in the problem space. It's what we choose. Right?
Let's start. What's coupling? If we go to the lexical origins of this word, it will take us all the way back to Latin, where it was composed of two words, co and apere. Co-apere meaning fasten together. In other words, if two things are coupled, it simply means that they are connected. And that makes coupling a ubiquitous phenomenon. It is everywhere. This clicker is coupled to my computer right now. Organs in our bodies are coupled to form us, living organisms producing code. For that matter, a car, a city, a human body, an organism, a company, all those systems, they're held together by coupling. You cannot build a system if all of its components are disconnected. This, on this slide, for example, that's not a system. That's just a group of some components in the same boundary, but they're not working together, and as a result, they are not providing any value.
To sum up, I've shown you that we use all the fancy things, like layers. We split things by hand. We have a layer for the controller stuff. We have a layer for the features. We have a layer for the models, the business logic. We have onion and clean architecture because we inject things to get data from the database or call other services or make telemetry or send notifications. We use the ideas from fractal architecture. We have slices within slices within slices. And we use hexagonal, we use adapters, like the controllers are adapters. And something that I didn't mention is that when one subsystem has to talk to another subsystem, that goes through an adapter as well. Then, of course, we have vertical slices. We build the system feature per feature. We add a slice. And yeah, the last thing, I mentioned it already, is please take all these ideas, but think for yourself how you can use these ideas in your applications.